Seattle's Morning News with Dave Ross. I'm Carolyn Osorio. Scilla Andreen. Now, you're the CEO and founder of Seattle-based IndieFlix Foundation, and you're working with ParentMap on the screening of your new film, Angst, which deals with anxiety in adults, but also primarily in teens. Is that and preteens? Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, that's where we sort of focus the conversation and start it, but it really applies to all of us.
How did you, as a filmmaker, how did you narrow into this topic?
I actually had a friend of mine ask me to make a movie about mental health, and I actually said no. And she kept asking me, and I kept saying no, because I was involved with other films about, growing up in the digital age or bullying or empowerment, and I didn't even know how to tackle mental health. But then she died by suicide, and that really kind of shook me and made me realize that, this is invisible and it's silent, and we just don't know what's going on with people. So we need to open up the conversation. We need to look at it. This affects all of us. I'm not, we all have mental health. We all have anxiety, but why are we having seemingly a rise in anxiety disorders and suicides, especially like suicides in young people? Where is this coming from? Why is the world so stressed? And so I became obsessed with wanting to have this conversation, and the way that I express myself and learn about topics is to make movies about them.
And so through this process, have you come to an understanding as to why you think that teenagers and preteens and even kids, like a little girl, you got some feedback that she's 9 years old, and she says after watching the film that she was so happy that she realized that she was experiencing a panic attack instead of thinking that she was dying. I mean, that is so, as a parent, and even if you're not a parent, like reading that is so, they're just sitting in their classrooms or in their rooms and they're just stewing. And what have you learned from this process?
It's really interesting. We all really want to talk about this because it's happening to us. It's happening around us. We all know someone who's deeply affected in some way, shape, or form, either with an anxiety disorder or some other mental health challenge. And whereas with like bullying, or like when should you buy a kid a phone and how much time should they spend on it, like these are big topics too, but we're all talking about it openly. We just don't really know the right course of action yet. So we're exploring that, which is great. But with mental health, we only talk about it when something horrible happens, whether it's a school shooting or it's a suicide or, someone has a full-on panic attack or something that happens that kind of gets our attention. Then we talk about it, and then we stop talking about it. There's the stigma. And in order to break the stigma, we have to start normalizing the conversation around mental health. And we chose to start the conversation with anxiety because we felt it was a universal sort of approach. Everybody has anxiety. It's a good thing, part of the human condition. And it's just that now, like a third of us are starting to have anxiety disorders. And so why? Why is that happening?
Now, is that in adults or is that in kids?
Both.
Okay, so the numbers are about a third are experiencing
of the U.S. population.
Of the U.S. population. Is there anything that you think that people should know about this film that would make them want to go, like reach out to the person listening? Because anxiety, as someone who's experienced it, like that low-level simmer. And I think that's why it goes so undiagnosed and people don't talk about it. It's kind of like one of those things that is so debilitating and yet we can't talk about it. What do you think is going to get the people through the door to see your movie?
I think the number one thing people should know is that this movie is not depressing. It's actually light and full of hope, and it's got resources and tools. The IndieFlix Foundation has we have a little motto, which is we support stories that we believe can change the world within a minute of viewing. So that in itself is pretty hopeful. You don't need a doctor. You don't need insurance. You don't need money. You don't need to know someone. You just need to go and see it. Have a conversation with your community, which is why we have it. We insisted at screening communities so we can witness each other watching it, then have the conversation, and then we have permission basically to talk about it at the bank, on the soccer field, at the store, before a dance or a test. And when you can talk about it, then it starts to normalize it. And when you normalize it, you start to share information, and that's part of prevention. And then you can practice and turn it into self-care and wellness. And we can start, implementing that at a much younger age. And it can happen at school, and it can happen at home, and at work, and we can move the needle just by doing so little. We can shift, all of us, taking all that stress away.
Scilla Andreen, CEO and founder of Seattle-based IndieFlix Foundation. Now, your film can be seen on May 10th at the Sammamish High School Performing Arts Center. There's 2 showtimes at 5 and 7. Is that right?
Yes, and you can also go to ParentMap.com/angst to get more information. You can pre-buy tickets or you can buy tickets at the door. You can also go to angstmovie.com, and you can find more screenings there as well. We hope everyone will come. There's going to be a panel of experts. You get so much out of the conversation. The movie is less than an hour, and by the time you go home, you have tools you can start using immediately.
Thank you so much for your work. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.